Hello and welcome to Astro Mingle, the spiritual podcast that mingles with the talented lightworkers and the innovative influencers of our time. I'm excited to have Natha Perkins joining me tonight. She's a fellow astrologer with a real gift for making zodiac feel really practical, personal, and transformative, which is why I like working with her. Natha blends planetary wisdom with spot-on intuition, turning every sign into a toolkit for growth and healing. And she'll be joining me tonight. An exciting topic. We're doing a special. We're going to actually walk through the shadow work for each of the 12 signs. We'll be sharing how astrology can help us better understand and embrace our challenges. It all has the tools right built in. And since we're live, we'll also be answering your questions from the chat as we go. So we'll talk about that in a second. But please welcome back Steph 14 Taurus, Natha Perkins.
Yay. Hi.
Hi, nice to see you.
Be
I
here.
really identify with the 14 you. I have a solar eclipse at 14 Capricorn. So like I feel like we 14 each other, and together we're 20. Grandmaster Taurus 28. It's all good. I'll start off first. We're in 2025 for the record, I think, and that's how time has been. But real quickly, just in your own, how has the year been for you astrologically versus what happened in life?
I mean, it just feels so surreal
Mm.
and so crazy right now, I have to say. It's a strange year. I've got a lot going on in my own chart, but I think the nodes in Virgo and Pisces are they're wild, aren't they?
Yes, I mean, actually, now that I'm awake and I understand spirituality, and I am witness to this nodes in this time, 18 years ago will be the last time. I now see how spirit changes, like our spirits change. I see how our spirits heal or don't heal. I see how that turns into like literal change, like in your life, and a lot in health because Virgo, a lot of people with health issues and accidents, and a lot of people played out in the body too. But so much of a wow, just not not even hiding anymore astrology. It's just in my face kind of reality. But I think that's Virgo, the south node of Virgo, seeing all that stuff crumble that was everyday life, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, and just that whole North Node Pisces thing where we're all starting to see that we have very little control. We thought we had control,
Oh,
and
interesting.
it's like slipping through our fingers and we're all at somewhat of a loss. And that could be also the Neptune going back
Mm.
into Pisces. Like there's just a lot going on.
Well, I think honestly, with Neptune in Aries and Saturn in Aries, and Neptune last time is Aries was a civil war. It is we do. I think the civil war is like same thing. It's like how is this going to change? This is really bad in the sense of how buried we are, and this that Aries like wants to now struggle to get out and be itself or birth or there's a new ego on the horizon, and the question is will you repeat the old one or not? But I think there's a test. We haven't had our test like World War II. Every generation has some sort of test, and we really haven't. Unfortunately, I think the ones we've gone through were just lead ups to this one. But you're right. The Pisces stuff is really exhilarating, and my spiritual energy has been higher too. Like I've just been going higher in different places in spirit than I used to in the past, or putting things together I hadn't put together with all this Saturn through Pisces. Like I guess my profession went up a notch with spirituality.
Yeah, same. And there's being able to look at the concept of spirituality in all of these different through all of these different facets.
Yeah.
I feel like in 2012 we were kind of, not spirituality 101, but it was sort of beginner level, and
Yep.
we've all been getting stronger and, more mind-blowing along the way, and there's something right now where it's almost like we're being asked to go back to basics, which is kind of frustrating, but also it's like, oh, right, right. I'm remembering the stuff that I had forgotten that I need to move forward with into this next thing that you're talking about, which is, we don't know, but we feel it
Mm-hmm.
coming.
Well, I've always felt it coming my whole life, and I'll just say, back to the basics to me was like back to where I started my career. So I was like, oh my god, I'm at the beginning of my career again. Here I am, but I know so much more, right? And it's okay because honestly, the more times you have, the more time you have to get it right. I think in some ways you're grateful. Tauruses are patient that way, aren't we? So, but one of the things that
We're
happened in the
impatient.
last, yeah, exactly. I know, but we wait longer than any other sign, I think. Um, that's kind of thing we're going to talk about tonight. Like we were talking about the darker sides of each of the 12 signs and their shadow work. And I guess first question is, what is shadow work in your eyes?
I feel like shadow work is where we have to face the parts of ourselves that we like to pretend doesn't exist,
Mm,
or that, it will make a huge difference in our evolution if we're willing to look at this little sharp edge, this little pocket of old trauma, this part of ourselves that we don't like or that we've been trying to avoid. But,
hmm
I always I work with so many clients in the shadow aspects, and I feel like it's, when we are willing to look at it, it's never as heavy or as hard as we thought it was going to be. And it just opens us up to what's next with this sense of freedom of like, oh, yeah, that thing is not holding me back anymore in the way that I thought that it was.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with you on definition. It's where you are ignoring pain, ignoring trauma, basically ignoring, because that's why it's in the shadows. You're keeping it from your own sight deliberately. You don't realize that till later. You realize, oh my God, I conspired against myself to keep stay away from this thing for a long time, and it's stuff that you don't want to think about. Even right now, it won't come to mind if you're watching. I think what yours might be. Maybe when you do these 12 scopes, but I think to say that we face basically our shadow. We face the things we're afraid of inside of us. That's what it is. Things we're afraid of. We're afraid of that, and that's silly if you think about it. To be afraid of yourself, you're not going to hurt yourself. Really pure of who your soul is, and that's what we're realizing. Like, well, wait, we actually, and that's what you're saying. You say we've lost control, but I think it's because society's learning that they have the control. It's like inside them, and it's magical, and it doesn't really belong to a lot of these current things that we believe in as a society at whole. But people are getting into astrology. That's what I love about it, and especially millennials, which are Pluto Scorpios, in my opinion, for the most part. How you classify them astrology? How do you classify millennials in
I always look at millennials as, yeah, definitely Pluto and Scorpio, and then also that Uranus, Neptune, and Capricorn. And, that's quite a batch of stuff to be working with.
in
And
government, in the sign of government,
right.
right? It's like that they're like literally raised to be in government or to govern, right? But the moment they're
Yeah.
the ones saying they don't want to do it, I don't want to, and they're living with mom and dad in lots of cases. Like a lot of them are not taking control. But that's what I find anytime there's a theme. You have people who are good at it and don't realize it, or you have people who don't even know it exists and now they're waking up to it for the first time. Like it's a whole spectrum of wherever it hits you.
Oh my
So
God. I mean, to get into all of the, if we're just even looking at Pluto signs in terms of shadow work, to look at the different generations,
yes,
once you know, it becomes so clear and you can't
yes,
unsee, like, oh, of course, you're in this generation, you're working on this. And,
yeah,
because we all get assigned a generational shadow work to
yep,
transform. And then we each
yes.
have our own little personal bag of shadow work that we have to
Totally,
deal
yeah.
with.
Now we like, and even then, it's like everyone's trying something different. Like
Mhm.
of all my generation, my age, like oh, it was in his kidney, and it's in his nephew. It came up with loss of this. Like you see the same shadow come up and be faced in your life somewhere, but for all 12 signs and stuff, it's a different place of your life, and that's why people don't quite catch on. But it's remarkable, and I think the generational is really important right now because I think we're going through a generational shift. I feel that now that Pluto's in Aquarius, it means it's time for promotion, right? So there's vibrational promotion, like the more lighter, more equipped, more talented with different frequencies are going to float down to the top of government. Not that people know how to control and basically law, all these Capricornian ways of having power. So it's like we're moving into the Aquarian ways, and so it's about attraction, it's about energy, and so I feel like there's this innovation spirit that's about to break, and so each generation is moving now. So after Trump, Gen X will be the next president.
Yeah.
So that's huge. That means a whole generation. And Gen X was the X of Pluto and Libra. So these are people freaked out about like whether or not they're okay in relationships, and we've tended to overcompensate in our generation. I'm an Xer, and so we become really good at relationships as a result. So your shadow work turns into your talent. That's the irony of it. It turns into
Yeah.
your talent. It's like you're inversely, by facing fear, you're like planning, you're learning what you're good at by the negative, facing the negative side of it. It's really interesting. And then Black Moon Lilith is the other planet I think is worth looking at. With her in Scorpio this last year, she got to the bone of the problem, the bone of the fear, the bone of the I'll tell you guys, it's this is as loud as Black Moon Lilith gets is when she's in Scorpio. Like as far as I'm concerned, my notices of her because real fear that you can't look away from if you're clearing out the Scorpio stuff. So this year
Yeah.
it's been a lot of Pisces, a lot of Scorpio clearing. It's like a deep, dental, cleaning of our spirit.
Yeah, yeah, and I always look at the Pisces and all of the water signs is like that's where the fear lives, and it's
Mm,
all different versions of fear.
yeah.
But really, when we get in there, it's like this fear that's like not real. I mean, yes, we have traumatic things that have happened to us, but a lot of what we a lot of what we get so embroiled with, and I don't want it to happen again, and I don't want to look at it, and I don't want to deal with. It's kind of just existing like within our minds. It's not even really that real. And certainly with the Scorpio stuff, that's the like, I don't don't want anything bad to happen again. And ooh, it goes deep.
I think you have to say you don't want it to happen again. Like I think the universe always makes you say that. Just so I think no matter when you face your fear, you face your shadow. You have one more round with it as the form of like, okay, it's done, right? But I also think too that with Black Lilith in particular, there's a particular rage usually programmed into each one of those like Scorpio degrees. Like each step number has like a different kind of like something happened. It was a relationship. It was this. It was that. So we've been like from the beginning of her transit by step. Okay, face all the abandonment stuff. Okay, face all the emotional abandonment stuff. Okay, face all the ignorant or out of fish out of water stuff. As we go up the steps and so we've all been clearing up that whole part of us out. And she's now in a place where we're ready to we're over the top. At this moment. I mean, when we record this, is right before Halloween.
Yeah.
Which is the death and birth and the whole, moon in Scorpio. The moon of full moon in Taurus is Halloween moon, and that's a moon of creation and rebirth. And Scorpio the day before was, and the beginning of Scorpio as well. And Libra, just a moment ago, everything was balanced and perfect. Then you go into this fall, starting to, drop lines. So in this transit that we're doing now, going to the end of the year, just sum it up and go into our sign by sign. I feel a lot of people have faced most of their shadow. What do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like we're in it as well, and I think some
Oh,
of the frustration with the Piscean stuff is that we get to Pisces and we realize that there's nothing really that we can do. Like we can face the shadow, we can do the work, and then what? And Pisces says, well, you just have to wait. You just have to wait and see what's going to happen next and how you're going to have to integrate it or deal
mm,
with it. And so we're in this sort of holding pattern, which feels very uncomfortable. And
mm,
yet that's the lesson of Pisces is you wait, you observe, you allow.
mm. Compassion tells you, I think in Pisces, I feel like, this is my second Pisces round as an adult, honestly. If I just say so myself, and like Saturn went through Pisces twice in my adult, knowing awake to astrology, awake to the whole thing, and like observing with my whole life. And I'll say what happens is uh, you end up cutting out all the stuff that has been like family generational, like all the patterns of that deep self that leads to self-sabotage, no matter what, because it's Pisces, come out of the subconscious. And I just cut it all out. And both time now it's like, yeah. And funny, as I look back and reflect, I'm like, man, there's so much more I didn't know about the first round. As far as an individual, I say, it turns out it's a little deeper than we thought. But then I also think this awakening, what lifetime have we tried to heal past lives? Where is that written in any literature? Like
Yeah.
humans have not even thought of this before, except for the Vedas in India, in that culture. They were aware of it. That's it. For my study, but it's like, so we're just not waking up to these things as even to include or to think about, right? So I think we wake up quickly, is what I'm saying. So for each of the sides, I felt like it all dealt with a bit of a shadow, and actually many shadows. I was thinking about before the show. I'm like, there's a lot, and so I don't know if I want to pin any one on any sign per se, but I'm saying I have observed this in this sign of the shadow. Like really, my clientele, my clients, like what I've seen going on. And I notice other astrologers are different specialists of things. And it'd be interesting to just see how we compare a little bit. As far as what kind of client we're drawing in and what we're seeing from those clients. And then there's always intuition. You might find it too, and you're right. So I thought we just go on each 12 signs and kind of summarize, like maybe just the year, but not super long, but just what was this year about primarily, and where was their shadow work? How's that?
Yeah. That sounds
Okay,
great.
awesome. So I guess we'll start with we gotta just do it in a row so people know this. We'll start with the Aries. The Aries.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I always look at it like whether, if you are an Aries sun, great, but we all have Aries in our chart. And so we're all dealing with a certain version of shadow work when it comes to our Aries stuff. And
Mm,
because Chiron has been in Aries, that's been pretty tricky. And then we have Neptune and Saturn going back and forth. And I always look at the Aries shadow as that part of us that is either afraid to be angry, swallowing the anger, afraid to have boundaries, which for those of us with Chiron and Aries natally, like we know about that, or the part of us that is too aggressive and too demanding and
mm,
steamrolling people to get what we want. And there's
mm,
always this sense of like the ego wanting to get in with our Aries stuff and say, I want it my way. And that can really get in the way, whether we're swallowing the anger and we're like, no, 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 I'm fine. I'm so easy. I'm so Libra. Or whether
mhm,
we are like, screw you, you're not going to do that. I mean, both of those carry problems and cause us problems when we're on either side of those shadows.
Yeah, I mean, it's the child temper tantrum. It's like we ultimately have as our egos have this temper tantrum issue, and just as the Libra side will have like a martyr issue, like, well then fine, fine, like fine, have it your way, have it always your way, it's the same kind of thing. But you see it, and honestly, that I think that's where mankind has been, and where mankind is shedding off, like that part. So I think Aries comes to a point where it's almost like they're old enough now to go, like, the disco tricks don't work anymore. Like, and they don't really think about Aries. Here's a dirty dark secret about Aries. They're actually lazy. They're very lazy. They don't want to work. They don't. They are. They're just. They will just make themselves do it. Is what it is. Like, it's like, whoa, how do you do that? But they don't want to work. And so I think with like COVID and everything, like, they have lost motivation because they're not being motivated to conquer anymore. They're not being motivated to be sexy anymore. Like, all these things culturally aren't cool anymore, and nothing new cool stepped in. I'm not saying Aries aren't cool. I'm saying we're all like over humanity, and we're all ready for humanity to have a big change. So it's like even Aries, and I think with so their shadow work has been was, I think in some cases, do I give up? Like a question of like, I don't know what to do. Like, just giving up. In some cases, like finding God for the first time. So I have clients who's like this. They found God. It's like all their life they're like, "Ah, fuck church," and all of a sudden they're like, and they're almost kind of some beginning. Like in some cases, like right at the beginning, like, really, you're just hearing about Christ, like, kind of thing. And it's like, but for them, they had tuned it out, and so I think that came in Pisces too for them. But the real shadow was, I think, sexual, like, shame has come up. Sexual shame has come up a lot with Black Moon Lilith, and I think the shadow of the ego is, feeling a little, in some cases, not be able to be strong. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
Not really have that old sort of like cockiness. Honestly, is a good word for it. And so, what replaces that? Because even they're tired of it. That kind of like the pushing of things, but they're also letting they pull things into them. So, what have you seen?
Well, I mean, for one thing, like what's going on culturally right now with all the Aries and the identity stuff, there's so
Mm,
many problematic issues with identity. Like you're not
mm,
allowed to be this, or you're only allowed to be that. Or if
mm,
you are within this group, then you can have your identity and it's okay. But if you're within that group, you're not allowed to have that identity. And so there's been all of this confusion
mm,
around like, am I allowed to, because the Aries is so connected to identity as well. Like, wait a minute,
mm-hmm.
how am I allowed to show up? And as we know, as we've watched, especially just since COVID, it's like you better fit in the right group. Otherwise, you're going to get shunned, you're going to get shut down, and you need to dampen your fire. And so, like what you're talking about, there can be a real impotency in that of like,
Yes.
I can't, like, I'm only allowed to be a warrior if I'm a warrior for this group. But if I'm a warrior for this group, or if I identify over here, then forget it. I better just sit down and shut up. But if I'm over here, oh, I'm getting all of these accolades and it's so amazing. And, I think that that has been a very confusing part for all of us to deal with when it comes to our own personal Aries energy is like, is it, am I allowed to be strong and powerful? Or am I supposed to just sit down and like, pour water over my fire?
Well, ironically, so the way I see it is, I agree, and I see that what Aries are lost in, like, the Aries are thinking about, that strength. As soon as they know what they want, they'll just go for it. They have no problems with that. So I think they're looking for the new way, and the rest of the population is like, maybe we should do it too. Like, so I think we adopt what Aries had just been as a population because we didn't want to be on that, bleeding edge of whatever it was. They're the trailblazers. They're the ones that, the gonads to do it. So we're like, go, tell us what it's like. And then, by then, so they're going to have like a wardrobe change now. I think they're going to be something that we haven't seen before. Aquarius rules their 11th house. So they are to live the age of Aquarius. They're to make themselves a society of the age of Aquarius. It's something people don't realize, but the only signs that be Aquarius in society is Aries are told to be Aquarius in society. So it's like, oh, so they're maybe off pioneering the new stuff. But
Yeah.
I think, so wrapping up for their shadow, it's like, I mean, it's having faith in yourself. I think also for the inside, I think Aries are realizing it's not how tough you are, it's not how strong you are, it's not how you push, it's who you are on the inside, and that's the cool maybe next character level for them is like, because I think they were trying to prove, and now I think they're starting to move into like wanting to just be. That's what I'm saying, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe like the permission to rebel, the permission to be different in, with, as you mentioned, that whole Aquarius aspect. And we just haven't really had permission to be different in the last 5 years. It's like, you better
Yes.
get in line. And
Yeah.
Aries is always the trailblazer that's like, hello, I'm here. And so we can watch that and kind of watch the Aries and be like, okay, like let's be different. Let's be unique. Let's not be so afraid to stand up for,
Mm.
whatever it is that we want in the moment. Cause like you said, Aries can be a little lazy, so it's like, I want to
Yes,
be
they are.
different for a minute.
But they will fight all the energy they have in that fight.
Yeah.
They'll give it all. They'll give it all their fight. They'll give it all their energy. So you're gonna have a whole battery of energy like dump on you if you go against an Aries. You don't want to. You know what I mean? They don't want to
Exactly.
either, though. That's the other thing. That's the secret. They don't want to. So, wow, very good talking Aries. And overall, I'll say the whole gender questioning and being able to identify your gender, and you pick your gender, and I'm going to help on my identity. I'm going to say what I am. That was all. I think you're right. It's kind of run through Aries, give us the courage to like say, we'll define this. We don't need the government around to do it. We'll define this, right? And so they've taken upon themselves to decide where male female is, and that is the Aries Libra gender. I mean, opposition. Libra is female and Aries is male, and that's Venus Mars right there. And so I think at least Mars is saying I'm going to be who I want to be.
Yeah,
Men are,
exactly.
right. It's interesting. All right, let's move on to Taurus because we have to. I think it's a good idea, Diane. By the way, so Taurus, I am one, so you are one. Geez, this won't be fair, will it? We'll
Yeah.
we'll be. I don't know if we'll be super honest or we'll be really smart, like making sure it's right. It'll be both, right? Um, well, Taurus, Pisces is the 11th house. So like, I think we were on the hook of who we had to be in society for some reason, and we were being that in society for the society, and we knew we were. We knew that. Like we were okay with it, and I think it's just come to an end. Like for me, there's like place I need to be in society because I felt bad about past relationships in society. So I worked out karma as who I was and my brand and everything, being peaceful and being spiritual. Like just I think healing all that and trying to as a Taurus, this solar Taurus. But anyways, after that, it's like feeling like that weights off your back and then like oh. I can be whoever I want, and that's the discovery of my area. It's like, oh, I can be who I want now. Like to me, I had to like do certain jobs, and it's not that I haven't been myself, but it's been like I haven't been able to be myself because I had these things I had to finish, kind of thing, is where I was. And I'm sure if the fears, I mean, over the years, fears of admitting all that stuff inside myself and going, oh yeah, that's who I am. That's cool, kind of thing. But anyways, this year too, Scorpio for us is our home family. So, whew, man, I had all the home family like fear, like childhood stuff has all come up for me, and just been this whole year with Black Lilith in Scorpio. But mostly, she says boo, and I'm like, you again?
Yeah.
It's not, I'm not pulled back or lose energy. What about you? First
Yeah, I
curious.
mean, I feel like one of the things that Taurus has had to deal with is Uranus in the high degrees. I mean, it's been in
Ugh.
Uranus for ages, but the high degrees were, just really challenging for all of us, for all of our Taurus energy. It's like one of the shadow sides of Taurus can be sort of a laziness, right? Like a not wanting to do it, like I'm tired and I just
Mm.
want the goodies to come to
Wanting
me and
pleasure.
I don't want to, right, I don't want to have to work that hard. But there's been this push to say like not only do you need to practice working, but you need to figure out how to pull in the abundance because that's what you're here to do. And you're also really looking at your connection to your own worthiness and as you bring in abundance, you're realizing like, hey, I've got it handled. I can do this. But anything that was not there for all of us with our Taurus energy that thought, I don't know how to make enough money or I, don't have the energy to do that or I don't feel good about myself, that has all been really confrontational where it's like, oh, I have to figure this out. And then, like you said, along with some of the other stuff with the spiritual stuff and the family stuff, like it has been one thing after another. And yet, I don't know about you, but I am definitely emerging feeling so much more solid. And like doing that Taurus work, facing that Taurus shadow is, I think, one of the most important shadows that we can face because we need to know how to find our ground in this life. If we're going to do anything else, we need to know how to like tap into what we're capable of. And it's been a few years of doing that.
Yeah, I think Taurus is, just like the beef industry, we're led into like, bad food and And so we've been manifesting with bad ingredients, so to speak, and we had to work out those shadows there. I always knew it held back my total income, and just thinking that question knew it held back my total income, and we haven't been into income. Frankly, I mean, it's obsessed with trying to merge spirituality with income, just as I guess an experiment, kind of, And so for me, it's like I'm hearing what you're saying. I think I'm pretty proficient. My Venus is at 26 Taurus, so my hand is out at like the $1 million level. I'm like $1 million level, like my hand's out there already, like always. But I'm where I'm at, kind of thing. So for me, it's like, oh, finally, I can kind of go for that other level, which there's a lot of working out to do for that, because it's like the values of money was important for. But for me, it's always for investment and things I want to do. Like it's always for the things I'm going to create. But we still have to process, I think, a lot of old abundance, false beliefs, and also I think you have to be have ingenuity today, because with Bitcoin and everything else, like how to earn in modern markets, like this is a burgeoning. Uranus is going through our sign. That was basically saying, hey, Taurus, you got to up everything, like increase it. And Taurus, like we already are ahead or have been. And it's like, yeah, but you're down below. Like it's time for you. So for us, we're manufacturing, we're producing. I think you're going to see now that Saturn's at the end of those degrees of Taurus. For me, it was very much about like, okay, so what are you going to really aim for? What's really worth it? Like what's really worth it? Whereas before I wanted, everything, but didn't really have my heart focused on any one thing. So any other points on shadow for Tauruses? But
Yeah, I
where did
think
make
too,
this hour?
just for all of us, like getting more clear on what our values are, right? Because we have come from time in the early 2000s where there was more money, and of course there's been some market crashes along the way, but it was like, oh, I want to buy this, I want to look good, I want to have the keep up with the Joneses. But what I'm seeing with clients and with myself too is that it's like, oh, none of that really matters. Like what
Mm,
really matters is that there is a stronger spiritual connection, or it really matters is that I have the confidence to know like I can create whatever I want. And so it's a little bit more of a sort of a deep dive into like what is really valuable. Like, is
mm,
that Gucci bag valuable? No, who
yeah.
cares? Okay, great. So
But other products have like taken off too. I think it's not just Gucci products. It's not just the Gucci whatever. It's the whole concept, the idea, the vibe. Like that vibe is just not around. Like we don't value that vibe anymore.
yeah,
I think and that's what it is. Like you value it or you don't value it. I mean, a Taurus has in their house a career Aquarius. And so Tauruses are here to make a living at Aquarius. They're here to make a living at vibes and buying and selling vibes. And conscious real estate is huge. Like a domain can be worth so much. It's just a conscious in the mind, really. People load it up the pages, but the whole world's in their mind. It's like a book that's interactive. So Tauruses, I think, are going to have to invent like the new markets, and they have a lot ahead of them. And I think the shadow was that you owed the world something, and you don't. Do whatever you want. Have your heart, let your heart sing. Because right now you can be a white bull. You can be that bull that like pulls something off. Henry Kaiser comes to mind. Uranus and Taurus. Henry Kaiser. He built all these ships for for World War II, and then after that, he had all these hospitals left. He made Kaiser Permanente. So he's like a Taurus. Is just like I'm going to provide ships, and now I'm going to provide medicine, like something valuable, raising the value, making money, doing it fast in a different way. When Uranus was in Gemini last time, and also in Taurus last time.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think
interesting.
for all the Tauruses out there, just that whole re-recognition of just being such a powerhouse sign.
Mm.
But we've had to like reconnect with like, oh right, there is power here. We do have a lot of capability within this sign. We just had to remember and kind of rediscover like where's the capability for me within myself? What am I bringing to the world?
Yeah, and a Henry Ford spirit, who is also Taurus, was just like we need to reinvent how we do this, because the way we've done it is the way that is now a waste. And so Tauruses are the industrialists. They're like we can manufacture, make this faster, this way, this way, this way, and create value where there's never been value before. Like now, this is valuable. Like and Tauruses will own that conscious real estate or manage it in those ways. Yeah, it's fascinating. And with AI, that also blows the lid off it, because Uranus for Taurus is now in the house of money. So with Gemini, like Tauruses are going to be rethinking how they make money, and at the same time, you have the advent of AI coming on board at the same time. So we just kind of got like three for our money, three for a dollar, with Uranus in the second. Like we're going to be running with AI along with it at the same time that we could receive it. But I see it's time for us to move on. So let's turn to Taurus Market Watch.
Yeah, I
So
mean that's a great segue into the Gemini, right? Because that is some of the shadow of Gemini is,
Mm-hmm.
how do we use our mind? Are we just cluttering it up with a bunch of nonsense and a bunch of like, facts and screens and whatnot? Or are we going to really use it to streamline? And AI coming in
Mm.
gives us a lot of food for thought in how we use our brains and how we move forward.
Well, it's quantum. I think first of all, Gemini is Uranus and Gemini. So, Gemini. If I think about the mind, is it sort of sticks on. It's patternistic. It's just it's programmed and it likes patterns, and it's got its patterns, and we all have our circles and circles. And Gemini's could not be more true to that. Like they get caught in a rut. I have a son who's Gemini. I love him to death, but he's just like, I'm like, what about here? What about here? What about here? And then he's like, no, Dad, this is fine. But I think Uranus like, oh no, sorry, here doesn't. We're closing here. I mean, when Uranus shows up, it's like that is not going to work anymore. Wherever it hits you, it's like that's not going to work, and that's not going to work. It's sort of like karate chops in my experience. Like and you knew that wasn't going to be a good idea. Like it just kind of and clears a way for you to see something different. Kind of thing. So Gemini's and how they're locked in thought. The thing is, as they grow faster, Gemini, I think they hold the mental mind grid. I think the telepathic grid that we all surf on is really Gemini people. They're the point-to-point presence. They're the modems. They're logging us all into the net, kind of in a weird way. And so if they upgrade, well, then we're all kind of getting pulled up that way. That neural net goes high.
Yeah, and I think for all of us with our Gemini in our chart, that one of the shadows to really look at is what we allow into our mind. Like we have to curate what's coming through, because otherwise it's just cluttered and then it's messy. It's like walking into like a hoarder house where there's just so much stuff that you can't concentrate. And so
Yes.
that is part of Gemini, Uranus coming into Gemini is it's going to ask us like, what does the real estate of your mind look like? And are you ever in the present moment? Because if you're not in the present moment, then you're just so busy, you're missing everything. You're basically on autopilot.
It's interesting because I think their shadow was, first of all, Uranus in the 12th in Taurus. They had, their values, they have certain subconscious values. They didn't know that they hadn't got their programming to reprogram. Like they didn't know that they had these subconscious problems. I think there were the problems. And I'm a Taurus. So I feel like I was his problem. I'm his dad, like I set him up for him. I get, you're welcome. That's how it works. But, but they realized that they were ultimately putting faith in the wrong things, which is how they value and what they had faith in for them. Like what they have faith in is turns to that value. But Leo's in their third house. I mean, the way they stay in charge of like in their highest is just let their heart choose what they think about. If your heart chooses what you think about, oh my God, you're gonna love your life because, I think to some degree they let their minds go to the dark side. They didn't necessarily think they had control their mind. Their mind had control them. I see that a lot. But there's also shadow with Pisces, which is, career. They all have like they've all failed. I mean, if you talk to Gemini's, their perspective is they have failed at this, they failed at that. There's a lot of karma, like what they were bad at or tried doing. They'll tell you the list of things, and I was like, we all have a list of things. It's cool, like it's all good. But again, it's their 12th house, and to be able to produce or not produce. But Pisces in the 10th house, like where they were in the career, how they're stuck in a career. If you talk to them or they can't break out in their career, that's been the whole like since 2012.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's like when you're disconnected from your heart
Mm-hmm.
and you're just up in the mind,
Mm-hmm.
where is there's nowhere to go. Then you're just at a stop and you're in disconnection because of all of the incoming information. So really important for everybody with their Gemini stuff to be so specific about what you're going to allow to like take up the space in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think to some degree, Geminis get lost because thinking about it is almost as good as thinking about it the first time you experience it. And they're a little confused because they think about it and their mind is so powerful. They drop, I think, the whole memory much better than we probably do. And they have like a full memory of it, like, as far as five senses, because that's ruled by the nervous system. Like they own all that. And so they live in those memories, they live in those thoughts. And it's like, those are cool. But when you're actually getting it live and your mind is responding to the real thing live for the first time, that's the coolest. Like when you see something brand new, right? That's what you really want. So it's a great place to have that mind because then you're absorbing, you're communicating, you're expanding. So it's about them heading into the rainbow wind, and that is their heart. Think about what you love, and then go do something to like expand your mind that way. So we're gonna see them grow fast because they're not gonna let AI take over. Gemini's are not gonna lose that like domain, but it's interesting. It's under threat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, um, there's a lot of, like I said, remembering to come into the here and the now that is
Mm,
going to be really helpful for the Geminis because it's a way to balance out just all the stuff of like the third house, right? Like like the immediate environment. Like, okay,
mm,
let me just take stock because it's very seductive to go up into the mind and do all the thinking. But coming down to right here, right now is the grounding point and the
mhm,
way to come back to reality.
mm. Well, Cancer ruling their second house of money, Jupiter in Cancer, they're expanding their philosophy about feelings, and they're expanding they're expanding their resolution of feelings because it's leading to, them manifesting or not manifesting. They've got to get themselves emotionally behind, something, like, in order to make it really work for them. So they're going on that, and then Jupiter's heading for Leo, which means they're going to way spike up in intelligence and comprehension
Right.
probably in about a year from now. So, anyways, they're budding minds, so to speak. I think the other shout out to Scorpio, I'll just say right now, workplace, their sixth house, like they have been facing health issues. They've been facing any of their shadows with living in daily life, I've noticed, including homelessness, being afraid of being able to keep a place or keep a job. I've seen them, hurting that way. And it's like they're facing their demons, I think, of times when they, lived their whole life on the street or something, or went too far or did not go to the doctor in time. And so an infection almost as bad comes out. It's interesting to see those parallels. But those are their, where their darkness has been also.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that brings us straight into Cancer, like you mentioned, with Jupiter in
Hmm.
Cancer and
Hmm.
the shadow side of Cancer, which is all about, wanting to be loved, not
Hmm.
feeling like we're loved enough and just the pain of that of like like I'm doing all of this stuff for all of these people and I'm taking care of them and I'm tending to them and I'm not getting what I need back and then do I matter? And I think Jupiter is blowing that up for the cancers the cancers in the group. What do you think?
Yeah, well, their ego is shattering, and ironically, they have a very strong ego. They really do. It's when you get to them, because I'm a son of a Cancer, you know. But I've also sort of had them all around my life, and seeing where they've been. It's like Pluto in the seventh house in Capricorn. That's what's rocked them. It's like they are very like, as it comes to partnership and marriage and relationships, they're very controlling over their definitions of that, and they would not let go of those relationships because they love that kind of relationship, and they just couldn't imagine themselves in any other kind. Very Capricorn, like drill down seventh house, and even as Pluto into their eighth, I mean, it's just they're finally maybe considering letting go. It's Pluto's gonna have to get way into their eighth, I think, before they really like snap out of it. And Capricorns, I've seen the same. We'll talk about them up ahead, but I've seen them stay kind of stuck, still longer than I would have thought. So
Yeah.
this ego around relationship issue, that's where their ego has been too big, but and ultimately, Pisces, like they just believe whatever they marry. So Pisces, I think in the ninth house has been like they just gave away their religion to like their family or whatever, and they like lived by the book, and then didn't serve them, and then they're like, oh my gosh, and so they're really like think learning that like they can be, believe in anything they want. Or you had cancers who did anyways, like, and we're just a full moon out there and just was like not no apologies kind of thing. So you've seen both varieties, ones that can't and for those ones that do. But yeah, what else have you seen as they turn the corner here after the birthdays? Notice any change?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that we're all dealing with, well, with all of the cardinal signs, right? Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, is that they are the signs that want control, and
Mm,
they approach it in different ways. And Cancer is one of the water signs, so it's very much fear based, and
mhm,
it's the fear of like not being loved, not being safe, not
mm,
having control. And so, of course, that
mm,
can turn into like I want control of you. I'm giving you something so that you'll give me something in return, or I want to ensure that I'm going to be safe, and I want to ensure that you know that I love you and that you love me. And it
mhm,
does. It brings up a lot of the fear just in general, anytime that any of us are tapped into our Cancerian energy. And it's blown up right now with Jupiter there.
mm,
And at the same time, we're having to figure out the balance of like, if I can't force you to love me. And I don't, you know, I don't want to over mother you. I don't want to guilt trip you into loving me. I don't want to harbor resentment because I've done so much for you. And we all have that energy somewhere, and or we have somebody that's pulling that energy on us. And I think with Jupiter there, that it is the time to really look at that and back away and say, okay, once again, like I'm not in control of how much you love me. And I don't need to perform to make you love me. And so it gets very messy in there with all of our Cancerian stuff. And then it's attached to our family and our history and our relationships. And so it gets kind of messy, but it's also can be the sweetest energy. It can be this really beautiful, safe, satiated, relaxing energy. And I think that's what we're all trying to get to. Like, when does it start feeling good? But we do find it, and we're like, wow, this is what love is supposed to feel like. This is what I have been looking for my whole life. We just have to get there.
Mhm. Well, that sounds like a wonderful story. But, like, well, and I think we don't have coping skills. Human beings don't have coping skills. Cancers don't have coping skills for themselves. They actually don't have them, and they react actually very aggressively, in a very male way in some ways, like going after, something that will make them feel better, but not within. Like, their Libra is fourth house, and so they're very ambitious. 10th house, they have Aries and 10th, so their ego is actually in their accomplishments. I got the home, I got the man, he's a doctor, and like they were man climbers for all those years, so to speak. And I mean in the most respectful way, but they were good at it. Like you made good wives and good partners and good mothers. And so, like, especially in that era of that time in the 50s, which was very Capricornian feeling, in my opinion, they were Jackie O. It's like, as far as the type of, I'm talking about Cancer women because my mom's Cancer. Cancer men, I've noticed, very, the silent, silent with all their pain, holding in all their pain. I feel like we don't see it, you know,
Yeah.
and they had to let go of it. It's interesting. Um, so I've seen them, Cancers, I've seen changing and taking on their own belief structure. I feel like they're very proud of what they believe now, and they're not shying away or afraid or anything. I've noticed, like, of all of them. Even the person who taught me astrology was a Cancer, and she was very quiet and mysterious about it. And like, because she had another day job where she was a legit something, scientifically, and she didn't want people to know. Like, that's what it was like. So the fact that Cancers are going after it, I think, is the shadow lightening up. And of course, we have to say with Scorpio, Black Moon Lilith was in their fifth. So really tragic love affair wounds coming up. I mean, for Cancers, in the sense of, like, the fear of being alone forever. You did remarked on it so well, frankly, hitting all the points. But being alone and without and developing, you need me in order for
Right.
me to have value in your life. Yeah, definitely a big
Right.
part of it. Hmm.
Yeah, it's this whole thing, it's this whole shadow around, like, when I'm needed, then I know that I'm safe. But when
Mm.
I'm needed, I end up giving so much that then I'm depleted and I have nothing left for myself. So Black Moon Lilith in the fifth would have brought up that, like, what about me? I'm
Mm-hmm.
so concerned that you're not going to love me that I have lost myself, and I need to find myself. I need to connect with my heart. And when I connect with my heart, then I get it. Like, oh, I don't have to overperform to make you love me, because you're either going to love me or you're not. So it's deep work.
Mm. And the other thing about Cancers, it's like that Scorpio on the fifth, man. They will put all or nothing. They all have a story in their history where they gave all or nothing to love, all or nothing, and he broke her heart, or he broke his heart, or vice versa. She broke his. I mean, I heard more Cancer men actually talk about this wound than Cancer women. But it's just like there's always that deep, deep wound. They were just hurt bitterly, and that's Scorpio. But I think it's all Scorpio energy. With Pluto now, coming back in Scorpio in the 80s, like Scorpio was up for a major upgrade anyways. People have been wounded and bleeding for a long time. So they just tend to have Cancers come with that bleeding heart from a past life too, which is part of their ego one to, like, not have it happen this time. Interesting. So Leos.
Yeah. So ego.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
see, go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead. You're
Okay.
good.
I was going to say, I feel like the Leo is so connected to the ego.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we all have these egos that, especially, they're very loud right now. And maybe that's just because we're so connected to everybody through the internet. But it's like the shadow side of Leo is like, see me, listen to me, show me how important I am, listen to my opinion and what I have to say, and then validate me. And so we see a lot of that on social media. People get validated with comments and agreement, but also it's like we can't lose touch with who we really are, right? We can
Mm-hmm.
get so caught up in all of the drama that's going on around us with all the people around us and the political stuff and the opinions and all of it, because it's very, like, It's enlivening, right? It's like, ooh, I love the drama. But once again, if we have lost touch with our heart, and we've talked about that through so many of these signs, is the heart connection, which of course is like connected to the sun, and the sun is so important for us.
Right.
But that heart connection is the remedy really for almost all of the shadow work, if you think about it. It's like when we're in our shadow, we have lost connection with our heart, and we're swirling around like overthinking and overdoing and fighting and all of this stuff. But with Leo, it comes straight down to, are you connected with yourself? And most people are like, I don't even know what that means.
Hmm. I think that the nature of the sun and star, being a star that you really are. I think that older star was you had to shine really bright, you had to outfire everything, you had to be flamboyant, you had to make a scene, and you were really focused on. I think they were just focused on the bright, like just doing it right, and then lavishing the attention. Obviously, feeling really good from the attention. I think now that Pluto's in their seventh house, the shadow is like the sun doesn't even know what it has at the core.
Mhm.
Just has no idea. Like it doesn't even know what it has at the core. So the awakening for Leos is like, oh, I shine bright, but if I'm just like kind of cool with myself here instead of being mean to myself here or like dismissing myself here, like Leos have a lot of self judgment, which is the issue. I think the core issue. You know, they're worried about not shining or not being loved. And I think a lot of it is that they didn't realize they had to love themselves. There's a huge part there. I also think they got a lot, Uranus in their 10th, that just like lit up their careers and like took them on a path. So they, instead of, the normal fame, they've been having success, I think really good success. And with, Uranus going into Gemini, I think you're going to see the reintroduction of Leos. So they've gone through like a makeover. In a way, Aquariuses have taken the Leo seat. They're shining and brighting and they're showing off more than I've ever seen. We can talk about that, coming up. But, so like this, I've seen like this two signs of almost flipped roles.
Yeah. Well, again, we come down to some of the stuff that's going on culturally, which is where, you want to be seen, you want the validation, but you have to fit within some very specific parameters in
Mm,
order to get the kind of validation that the ego wants, because the ego
mm,
generally wants to be propped up.
yep.
And it's really hard right now because culturally, it's like, you better conform or else.
Mm,
And so for Leo, we get caught, all of us, with our Leo stuff, and the sun, Leo suns, like we have to start saying like, uh-oh, what if my heart says that I don't belong with that group? And what if the kind of validation that I want doesn't actually fit in with the kind of validation that other people want to give me? Which is where we come back to what you were just saying, which is like, I've got to learn to love myself. When I
mm-hmm.
love myself truly for who I am, not because of how I look or how popular I am or what have you, then nothing can take that away. And I don't actually need any external validation because I feel it here. Like I am connected to a deeper kind of love. I can feel that warmth of the sun, regardless of whether, it's cloudy.
Yeah. I think Leo's, for one, the Pisces for them is the eighth house. So the karma is all with sex, shame, death of people, not processing grief properly, secrets, having sex with one kind of person, but dating another, because the image is more important, but what their heart really wants, like, all sorts of stuff being worked through. I mean, really, I guess you could say that the royalty faced their closets, whatever was in there, they've been facing it this whole time. And so there's, right now I'm seeing a little bit of a dimmer version of them. They're kind of dimmer, they're quieter. It's like they're under construction, they're hiding, like we're between scenes or something. There's a wardrobe change. You can kind of feel like you can, it's like if Madonna was, still working on it, she is, but we'd expect a new Madonna, at the edge here. So I think they're reinventing themselves. But I think that I feel like because of the Aquarius stuff in the seventh, the shadows all on like what they're afraid of seeing themselves. That's what they're afraid to find. I think is a lot of it. And I think also, with the Scorpio, and where Scorpio is for them, it is kind of to the bone when it comes to home family. It's like at the end of the day, getting to the bitter truth about whatever emotional problems they have. I think it's been a lot of where, Black Lilith has been like, you do have this problem, you do have this problem. So they've had a lot of humility I've seen in their pictures and stuff as of late. But I know their spirit. So, you know, that's part of their courage and their pride later is usually that lion hunter. The lion does at some point pull the thaw out and, the thorn out of the paw and then jumps back into the race, and wants to be king or queen again. So I think we'll see them maybe with new values.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like this concept of figuring out what we're supposed to do in order to solve our shadow. When we start looking at Virgo, and we have South Node in Virgo, and I think for all of the signs, it's like, wait a minute, if the South Node is in Virgo and Virgo is about doing, we're all having to really face that, like, there's not that much to be done. There's not that much that we can do. So a lot of it is just sitting back and kind of watching and observing and
Mm.
looking as opposed to doing, which is really uncomfortable. And I think that's one of the things that we're all dealing with the Virgo shadow in all of our charts and Virgo suns is there's always been this, like, as long as I show up and I get the A and I do the thing, then I'll be safe. As long as people are falling in line and doing what I think, then we'll be okay. And right now, there like doesn't seem to be any of that. It's like we can't all the showing up in the world, all the being on time, all the figuring things out. It's not as solid as it has felt in the past. And so we're all kind of dealing with that. Like, wait a minute, who's in control here?
Well, Virgo is the mechanics of things, and it is the body which does die and be reborn. Like go ash to ashes, dust to dust. Like it's a sign that's meant to build and then dissolve and build and dissolve. And it does that, which is remarkable, really, because it seems so real. And then when it changes, you're like, I can't believe how I was so stuck in that one. When you realize, you don't realize how fluid it is until it starts to change. And we see this in time, like from the 70s to 80s was a huge change, like culture, clothing, everything, people, the way they thought. We see these huge cultural changes happen. I think we're on the verge of that. I think Virgo's an amazing job, frankly. They're coming to their power. I mean, their shadow is all their lovers and their partners and their relationships and the way this person treated them and that person treated them. They were a tit for tat with like particular souls. They didn't have a grudge with the whole world. Like they just had particular soul grudges. I noticed, like, and and ultimately, with the Aries energy for them, I think it's come out to find the battle for what they're worth. And moving forward, you know, um, in the direction they want to go. Like they've held themselves back because it's a boundary structure issue, and so it's all about like having the courage to go like, I'm going to write the boundary. Who cares what's right? I don't care what people say in society. Really, Virgo's taking that power of like they'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, as we're moving through the signs, when we hit Libra, that advice goes really well into our relationships is remembering
Mm,
like we're going to be fine. The relationship, that the shadow of Libra is all about looking at how we relate to others and
mm,
how with Virgo, we've taken it all on our own shoulders. And then we have to move into Libra where it's like, oh, there's all of these other people. And how do I contend with these people that I really love, that I
mm,
want to be in relationship with, but also that I find kind of frustrating and that are
mm.
showing up imperfectly. And so we bring the concept of wanting perfection into the relationships and saying, oh my gosh, it's not going to be perfect. I have to figure out how to coexist with somebody that I love, and be a part of a group while still dealing with the imperfectness of it. And that's what I'm seeing for Libra. And I'm curious what you're seeing.
For Libra or Virgo?
For Libra. Yeah.
I think because I'm looking at Libra in everyone's chart and everyone's life. I think Libras have been all again they have put themselves. They have Leo in the 11th house, so like they are meant to be stars, and that's not what I think of when I think of Libra. Do you? Like they're meant to be celebrities, and so they're truth, justice, all these things. And I think they've been caught up in relationships, on the old model. On the flip side of Aries, like being caveman against paying for muscles, they were like the little partner too, and I don't think they allow themselves to have identity. And Cancer is their 10th house, so like all their emotions around like upsetting people and getting things wrong, and so they've really been at their dimmest. And I was saying that Libras, this age where people dominate people, you took it the worst of all the signs because you're all good and all fair, and that got totally taken advantage of in the dark ages. And Libras are just now coming back to their I don't know their majesty is the best way to put it. I think is what's around the horizon. But a lot of guilt. They live a guilty life. Pisces, in the sixth, so everything they ended up in, like where they moved, jobs they had, it was all karma. And so life must have been a pain, for a long time. But they're also beautiful. They can balance so well, and they're going to come in and help. I think at the best time in the whole society's transition. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, like you said, the Pluto in Libra generation, which is Gen X
Mm,
coming
very well
into
said.
become rulers, become, moving into the age of now we start to become the government, that's a really powerful thing. And also to remember with Libra, I always say Libras are kind of badasses because they rule, but they rule by being very nice and easy. And so it's sort of this, back end rulership where Libra, when you're in your power and when you're not in your shadow of like, I just want to be so nice and easy and please everyone. No, when you're in your power, you're like, what do you need from me? I'm going to be really nice so that you'll give it to me. And so, hey, like that's a great form of power because then you get what you want and you haven't even upset anybody. Like you get what you want and they love you because they're doing what you want. And so that's one thing with Libra that I'm always like reminding my Libra clients, like, don't think that you are not powerful.
Okay, absolutely. I think they are learning that. And I think they're learning that. And I think also at the same time too, they're crafting like diplomacy going forward. Like they're the master
Mhm.
diplomats. The world's going to change, and they'll probably be the ones out there feeling the bravest, negotiating what needs to happen. So it'll be good to watch them. We're at a point now. We're going to go to commercial real quick and see our sponsors, and we come back. We're going to go talk Virgo. I think one more time. I'm sure we'll find out.
Okay.
Are you looking for inspiration to grow your conscious business? Sirius Joy's Board of Light is a sacred alliance of lightworkers, visionaries, and spiritual leaders dedicated to awakening conscious leadership. As a member, you'll receive professional support in the forms of bi-monthly Congress of Light meetings, exclusive community networking, and an array of guest speaker webinars each month to guide you on your personal dreams. First quarter guest highlights include consciousness architect Lisa M. Brazelton, Dharma coaching expert Sahara Rose, and Chiron specialist Karen Croney. Don't miss this profound lineup of wisdom. Join now for only $250 per year and be a part of the enlightened professional re-evolution. What are you waiting for?
It's in the stars to seriously change your life with a subscription to Sirius Joy. Sign up now for your personalized step astrology and daily pep talks. Highly predictive astrology sent via text and email. Daily zodiac weather reports. Advanced lectures, classes, edutainment series, and more. Sign up today for only $3.99 to seriously change your life. Only on SiriusJoy.com.
This Scorpio season, embark on a journey of self-discovery. Create your soul manifesto. Unveil your purpose. Live your truth. Welcome to 40 Days of My Truth and Purpose. Enrolling now, only at Sirius Joy Academy.
Hello, everyone. I'm here with Natha Perkins, a fellow astrologer. We're getting deep and I guess having really how two astrologers would talk, frankly, about all 12 signs and the shadow work they have been doing. And it's been an interesting conversation. Thanks for joining me, by the way. Glad you came. We just wrapped with Libra. It looks like we worried about Virgo having enough. But I think we never did Virgo officially, says Adam. Okay. I thought we did. Did we not? Did you not feel?
Virgo.
I thought so.
Yeah, we talked about Virgo and the doing and the wanting to help and have it be perfect.
Yeah. Totally. And karma through their relationships, ultimately is where life has been. The Pisces side for them is relationships. The Scorpio side for them, honestly, is their mind, right? Like, so, their shadows in their mind, they're their own enemy. And I think they're facing those fears now head on and realizing it's just a mind game. I look at Virgos as, wanting, in step system, Virgo is step 11 and step 1 is Leo. So the way I look at it is Virgo is 2 Leos in one. They are always wanting two things. Their hearts always want to go in two directions. They really are have huge appetite and productive ability, and so, and they will make a problem into a much bigger problem than it has to because they're so damn fertile, so it's part of their shadow too, overgrowing in the wrong way. So now we're on to Scorpio then.
Good old Scorpio. Yeah. Yeah. So I always look at Scorpio like maybe the premier shadow. Mere shadow of the group, and we all have Scorpio and we all have an 8th house, and so we're dealing with that. And it's like what has happened in the past that has scared us, that we don't want that thing to happen again. And then we also have that powerless aspect because with Scorpio, it's like other people, it's their money, it's their, we're waiting for them to give us what we need, that we're waiting for them to empower us. But we always find on the other side of doing that empowerment work that, oh, I don't have to wait for anybody to give me anything. Like I'm actually one of the most powerful people in the group. Like, wow, but Scorpios never seem to know that. I do readings for Scorpios and they're like, I don't feel powerful. And it's like, well, you have poison in your tail. Like you have the ultimate power, but there is an element of like having to find that, right? You're not just handed the power. You have to go through that hero's journey to find the power. And once you get it, like, whoa,
They find their power through the shadow. I
Mhm.
mean, they notice what you're not. They notice things that people don't notice about you. They see where you're flawed. They keep it all to themselves, and they wait for the right time to use it. And the stinger really is them throwing the god awful truth at you at the most unexpected time. Like they're like, "Well, you're an alcoholic," It's like, "Whoa," like right in front of mom and dad. Like they will do that sting right at the worst time, and it's the truth thrown in your face that you can't deny. What I mean? Like they've got the evidence. Like they gather evidence. They're like the ones that really will put people in the bed, hold over you, kind of thing. That was the old way. But you know their shadow is their fifth house. Like Pisces are fifth house. They're all brokenhearted and they're the type of souls that hold on to the pain. Like they hold on to the pain for whatever reason. And I think maybe it's how they do boundaries. It's like the pain, and maybe that's it. It's like don't let pain be the boundary. Like if that's your boundary, then find a new But I've known Scorpios who are like they know who's in charge. They know at the end of the day they'll kill you if they have to. Like they have this attitude, like if they have to kill you, they'll have to kill you. They'll do what it takes, period. And I think they will be the last man standing in most cases, like in most rooms, or woman, like Scorpio woman, don't mess with her babies. What I mean? Like, so, but I think they've been a little trigger happy, Aries is their sixth house. So they have been worked to death. They allow themselves to be kind of enslaved in the work system, and their ego have been like overworked and taken advantage of and spit out sort of thing, so to speak. I think, and Leo was their 10th house. So have they gone after their heart, what their heart wants to do? They've often done the safe thing, the practical thing, the thing within reach, So they haven't really gone for their dreams, which will replace that love affair that had broken your heart. Like a love affair with you and what you can create is also a love affair. So I think they're learning that too, that they have remarkable skills, and the world needs new boundaries too. So they're about to be called on stage.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that one thing for the Scorpios and for any, we all have it, is that one of the gifts is in precision and being really precise. So it's that gathering of the energy. It's like, despite what has happened, despite what you've been through, even despite some of the shadow stuff that you're still carrying, whether you have addictions or you have, trauma, that there is so much power in just getting very clear of like, what is it? What is it that I'm scared of? What is it that I want to do? And moving in and slicing and dicing in a really powerful way.
The ones I've known have the Pisces and the fifth. It's just been like, but it never works. It never has. Like they just won't let go of that. Like,
Right.
it's like, I know, but you have to re-inspire the inner child again as if it's brand new and give your inner child another chance, which is funny. They're learning that. That's where Taurus has helped, the opposite of Scorpio, because we're a 10, Scorpio's a 0. And Taurus always like, just add a little love, man, little 1, Meanwhile, Scorpio's like, you better drop some zeros here, bro, because you are a mess.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
the Scorpio with the Pisces in the fifth. It's like that terrible thing happened. So I'm not going to
Right.
let go of it because I don't want to forget that it happened because I don't want to get burned again. But then Taurus, you bring in that energy, and Taurus is like the reality check that's like, wait a minute. But if you look around right now, everything is fine. You have what you need. Like that
Mhm.
fear exists primarily back in your head, which is what I was saying at the beginning, is a lot of that fear for all of us is just not real.
Well,
So we have to really face that. And the monster under the bed, it's like there's no monster. Obviously there are certain monsters out there, but it's
well,
the first
everything
thing.
that is was made by you. So it's like,
Mhm.
if there's a monster, you wanted it. Like you wanted it, your heart wanted it. If there really is one, you created it. I mean, I think Scorpios are coming to that conclusion. We all come to the conclusion, like, wait a second, there's something between me and this real world that seems to be wired. Now that we have wireless and cell phones and stuff, we sort of have these like symbols of our own abilities. I was talking about AI. It's like, wow, AI comes right when Uranus is in Gemini. Now our perception of intellect is going to be bigger. Like there it is. Like AI alone is going to say, yes, we're about to leap in the way we think, and we have this model of technology outside of us that represents who we are. So it's interesting that way with Scorpios. They I think have harbored in that pain, and the strength that they've worked too hard at work needs to be supporting their inner child. And Uranus and Gemini, I think they're going to be surprised. They're going to change a lot of their boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the whole, like, the hard thing is what helps you grow. It is what is here to teach you and kind of uh, propel you into the soul growth, which is why we're here. Why else would we come to this planet and deal with all of this difficulty if we weren't trying to evolve our soul, really?
It comes to mind this last moment is just that Scorpios have Pluto in the fourth. That's their fourth house that's being torn up by Pluto. Their own sign is down there tearing up their childhood. And really, maybe they've just been too detached from their feelings as a means of survival. And I think with Pluto warming up those vibes, like they're going to vibe with stuff or not vibe with stuff. And that might be the warmth they're looking for, that they're okay. Interesting how that'll happen. All right. Sagittarius?
Yeah, Sagittarius. Well, I'll start. I feel like the shadow of Sag is so loud right now, which is the know-it-all. I know it all, and I've been everywhere, and I have formed my opinions, and I've formed my beliefs, and I am here to tell you and educate you. And we're all dealing with that. We all have that inner Sag in us that's like so positive of what we know to be true. And I think that when we get too wrapped up in those opinions, it's like, where's the hope? Like, where's the expansion if we are just stuck in what we believe to be true? And a lot of it is such old programming from before. And like you just said, we are in such a time of flux and change where the mind itself is like going through such an evolution that to stay stuck in what we have always believed or in our old thought patterns, our old connection to philosophy is such a waste. Like, where's the excitement?
I think what's happening, we're in a cultural shift, so they are no longer on top of it. It's undecided what will be next. I think that they own the archetypes, and the archetypes are sort of dead, all the archetypes, and so I think they find themselves, because with Pluto going through their second, they don't know where to make money. They're not where their values were. They were like very good, like sidekicks to the classic, business person. Like Libra in their 11th house, like Sagittarius are basically the steward or stewardess that comes to you in the skies. And they're also the ones on the plane buying the drinks. Like, they are the travelers, are the ones who want to travel. But that whole image of like just knowing how to get along with everyone. And I think we talked about Libra, and they're changing their ego and their interface. So I think Sagittarius are like used to being life at the party. And now there's a little reluctance there because they're under construction. The fourth house for them, Pisces, all their karma with their family. That's what they had to face. They faced all their dark family stuff. And I can tell you for every Sag I know what that was.
Yeah. I mean, and family stuff is just like the ultimate karma, isn't it?
It's a free spot. If
We're
you don't have
stuck
it,
with these people. We can't control them. It's the hand that was dealt.
Yep. Well, Unchosen, I think, is a handcuff. I think literally, they're like, if I wasn't handcuffed to that, I wouldn't even care. I don't want to be anywhere around it. My soul does want to run away from it. So I get it. It's where it's at. And I have a, Scorpio in my fourth, so I deal with that. But so I think Sagittarius were always super over happy because they were hurting inside. There was always this mopey part of Sag. Only their closest friends would ever see the mopey Sag, which is a kind of a Debbie Downer, like using all their knowledge to prove that it won't work. Like the story won't end in a good ending. Like they had that side, and I think that was because their childhood and the sad times they had, which what made them want to escape and travel the world, was like this crappy childhood, because all the karma comes to that fourth there, So I think they're very ambitious because of it. So again, what's my motivation? I see a lot of Sagittarius staying home, raising kids, like chilled out than the version I knew before.
Yeah. Again, it's like the evolution. And I think that we're all sort of in this pause right now where we know that we're evolving and we can see how far we've come, but we also don't really know what is it going to look like next. So there is a pause, and the pause is easier for some signs and more difficult for others because not everybody likes to just hunker down. And we're having to hunker down in a way with all of this Neptunian energy, which we'll get to.
Well, I mean, as far as Sages, they haven't gone for their dreams. I think they're very, where this goes next for them after, Pisces, Neptune, and the Aries energy is all about personal dreams and chasing after what you love, and them being re-inspired to fall in love or chase after their heart's dreams, or their character is defined in really making dreams come true. But they were asking for sort of like the Flintstone, the last era's, value system. I also think, Pluto Aquarius for them is their mind, right? So it's like, so their mind is what's opening up for the first time. With Pluto and Aquarius, like there's cool shift, but it's like, man, they're about to go, multi-dimensional cool shift. Like they're about to open up all their dimensional ways of thinking, which will probably feed it to us as a collective. So I guess there's a lot of learning, a lot of exploring to do for them. They're a little quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with Jupiter in Cancer right now, that it's a good time to just tune in to, whether it's the family stuff that you've had to deal with, or whether it's just looking at your own emotional nurturing and your own emotional world, that can be really valuable. Cancer's not the most comfortable sign for Sag to dip into, but
It's the eighth house. So that's where all the, Sagittarius have always been very promiscuous as a sign. I mean, they stick with who they want, and they base it on how they feel. If they feel right about it, they're good. If they don't feel right about it, they don't. And so their emotional pool is like their trust, their intimacy. They're very, very close behind closed doors and only behind closed doors. But that part is growing to a higher resolution too with Jupiter there, right? Like you're not looking at enough resolution, not looking at enough detail here, enough data.
yeah.
And I think also any kind of intimacy. Another thing too, I'll say lastly is I think some of the shadow has been intimacy. Like Sagittarius is like, the joke is love them while you got them because they're going somewhere. They will not be around long enough for that to gel into an intimate situation. They're off like a little firefly to somewhere else. And I think that's because they had wounds in the eighth house, emotional wounds that they just, swam around, so to speak. And now they're kind of getting, I think, that pool cleaned and believing themselves again. And so they'll be connecting, I guess, soon to the world, like on a closer level. Yeah. All right. Well, we've got we're up to Capricorns. Capricorns. Yeah, I mean, Capricorn's man. I'll let you start off, but the biggest thing is that coming out of Pluto and Capricorn into Aquarius, got to be a huge burden off their shoulders. What did you see as shadow? I mean, because Pluto faced, right? Pluto X-rayed that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Capricorn is just in general, it's such a strange sign to be in right now because we're looking around and we're like, well, who is the authority? And our relationship to authority, the way that I see it, has really taken some hits. Well, really since 2008 when Pluto moved into Capricorn. But this looking around the world and saying like the people that are supposed to be in charge are doing a crappy job. And then we have to look at our own internal Capricorn energy and say like, well, I've been in charge. What kind of job have I been doing? And I think that that's been really confrontational because a lot of us would say, well, I haven't been doing that great of a job at taking responsibility for myself, of making sure that I'm in alignment with my morals and my values and my ethics. But I think that we're getting better at that. I think that's part of what this energy of 2025 has been around, is saying, you have to really examine what authority means to you and who you wish to take as your authority and what you want that to look like. And then we're up against, again, like I've mentioned several times, this cultural expectation that everybody believes in the exact same authority, doing things the exact same way. And if you don't believe in that, then you're out. But now that Pluto is out of Capricorn, we're like, and into Aquarius, where we get to kind of innovate the relationship to authority. I think many of us are getting better at it. And I think that, like you said, the Capricorns are like, oh, thank God.
They're gone, absolutely, but they're lost. They still find. I found with Cancer, their seventh house, opposite, they were emotionally drained on their family. Like, I think they didn't deal with their feelings. They would come home and like kind of jumping on whoever their relationships with. They really were codependent in that sense, and they're having to grow out of that. And Aries for them is the fourth house, so they're like tough as nails at home. But I think that's the the ram having become the sheep. Like softening up, using that strength they have to nurture themselves, not necessarily go after certain markets. And with Pluto going in the second house in Aquarius, they're no longer the shit. Like they have to reinvent themselves in business. They're being forced to move into all the new clean energy. They're being forced to move into the newer, and they've always had the vision. But I think what they didn't expect was that it would have to play by the rules that way too. Like, oh, you can have all this innovative stuff, but it's like, but you also must be innovative in how fair you are. If you pay people, and they're like, oh, kind of thing. So they realize they're getting upgraded in like what they need to look at morally.
Yeah, it's a new version of authority, really,
Mhm.
because
Well
what
said.
used to work, that standard, like we do this, you get your degree and then you do this, and
Yeah.
that all got broken down with Pluto going through Capricorn, and now we're trying to reconfigure what authority means, and it has to be new. And I think that's one of the things that the millennials are going to be doing with their Uranus and Neptune in Capricorn, is that they're
Me too.
setting the bar. They're saying, like, look, we're not going to follow the same rules. And so we're all looking at that generation and saying, like, oh, maybe they're on to something. And then
Mhm.
we're watching, the older generation, which is the older generations are much more naturally Capricorn. And we're
Mm.
watching them start to, move out of positions of power. So there's a lot that the
Mhm.
Capricorns are recalibrating, and we're all recalibrating on some level when it comes to that energy.
And I think they're going to figure out where it's valuable. I think also, Leo, they're supposed to, the rule of law is simple. It says in their chart, Leo in the 8th house, every boundary should be made with love, period. That's it. If you just did that, Capricorns, you'd have empires. If you just made every boundary with love, and that's what Leo in the 8th is, and Capricorns, I've married Capricorn before, like, it's not till you get to that bedroom that you feel that they love you. Like, oh, thank God you love me. Thank God. you know, because you don't know up until that moment, until that private room where they suddenly take off their suit of power that they wear. It's very interesting too. They're very interesting, but they're not happy. I know that they were hoping to bounce back faster in most cases I've talked to. But I think there's just so many things. I don't think they understand that the depth of which the change will be, because we're including this other like level of Aquarius, of belonging, and things having certain heartfelt inalienable rights. I think the last thing the United States was forged was Pluto came in Capricorn, went into Aquarius. The American Revolution, the Declaration was in Pluto in Capricorn, and the most of the Revolutionary War was in Pluto and Aquarius. And the Revolutionary War ended at 4 degrees Aquarius, Grandmaster 4 of Aquarius. That's when it ended. So it's like, so I think we have a lot to see, is what I'm saying, with Pluto and Aquarius, because it really sets like whole new standards on how we organize and how we come together as people. And for Capricorns, that's money for them. That's money. So the shadow there is like, oh God, I may not be it anymore. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
shadow.
And then we have to move into all that Aquarius, and that's also an interesting energy, and we can segue into Aquarius.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Shadow of Aquarius.
What is the shadow of Aquarius? I mean, I'll throw it out there, but you expand. Like, they want to be the star, but they're lying.
Yeah. I mean, I always look at Aquarius as like, here we got to deal with people. And, most of us, like, we don't really like other people. We don't really, I mean, we have our Libra relationships of the people that we love, and we have the people that we talk to all the time with Gemini. But when we get out into the collective, it's like, these people are in my way. Like, I hate being in traffic. I hate the people at Costco that are walking too slowly in front of me. And, having to deal with the collective is super challenging, because we have all of these ways that we can control who we are and be in our comfort zone as we move through the other signs. And then we get to Aquarius and we have no control. And, there's this whole conformity rebellion thing that always goes along with Aquarius, where you conform and then you're okay. You rebel and then you're ostracized, but then, you're conforming for a minute, and then you're looking around, you're like, I don't like this. I don't agree with this. So there's always this dance that we're doing between, do I like this? Do I hate this? Do I like this group? Do I hate this group? And then where do we stand, while we're also doing that Saturn thing of trying to create something that is workable, right? Trying to create structures that actually work for all of our likes and dislikes and our differences. And, like, that's hard.
And well, they have to live it. You can't fake this shit, And I think with Pisces, their karma has been, I look at them all the way back to Age of Aquarius. So Age of Aquarius, that was hot. That was Atlantis or whatever. That was when the whole world knew it. The world fell. You became worth nothing. and you became like the weird guy or the weird woman at the party that said weird shit that everyone freaked everyone out. Which then, when the Bible came around, we identified as you were Satan. You had the bad things, and then you just went more and more inward because you couldn't like be your magical self because we didn't allow that stuff at all. Knowing world history, we didn't allow it. So their karma has been like they have not been able to like get their value for what they're worth in the world because we just didn't care about that commodity at the time, But now it's flipped. It flips all the way over, and I think they've now the world's their oyster. But I'm also seeing them honestly start to love themselves. I am seeing Aquarius now. It's like you knew because the intellectual little games they would say or things they would say that they must love themselves. They think they're cool shit because they always were always cool. Aquarius are always cool. They stand back a little bit. They don't give you the whole picture, But now they're actually like bringing out their inner, more of their childlike self. I've seen them warm up and get sweet and sentimental. I think it's all that just I don't know melting of the iceberg or rising of the vibration.
Yeah, and I think Pluto in that sign it's already working its transformation magic. And
Mm-hmm.
the Aquarians are always the front runners, right? They're the
Mm-hmm.
ones that we're there to watch because we're saying, oh, it can be done differently. Oh, okay, because you're modeling it.
Mm.
And Pluto's in there saying, like, hey, it's okay to be different, right? And that was part of the last 5 years is there was this very strong message that you're not allowed to be different unless you fall
Mm-hmm.
within this one, sort of
Mm-hmm.
unless you're in this group or that group. And so the Aquarians are starting to step out and say, yeah, I am okay. I can finally like be my quirky, interesting, unique self without worrying so much that it has to be in a conformity.
I think Uranus through Taurus did them well, giving them a new fourth house, like better cushions and just like, comfy. And so that now they're facing fears in their career because Black Lilith is in Scorpio. That's their house of career. They're here to draw lines. Their career, their legacy is that they make distinctions between things. And distinctions might be like, no, it's not this, it's a special this, or is it that, they're here to like, because they're frequencies and they can read frequency really well. And so they read us in a level that we don't read ourselves, or at least not now. It's culturally popular, you know. And so I think they are out there making innovations like, no, this is a bad, let's add this lightning bolt to this lightning bolt. And that's the innovation you get with Aquariuses. But personally, yeah, it's been money hugely, like anger coming out. Why am I not successful? Why am I held back? What's the world not doing? That sort of thing. A lot of anger, repressed anger I found with the Pisces stuff for them, frankly. And also their intellect. They have Aries in the third. So they're very arrogant about what they think. They've always had to be. I can see they're always defensive. They're the weird wizard. So yeah, they're defensive. But I think their own arrogance got in their own way of seeing things. And that's where it's healed with Chiron for them.
Yeah.
And they don't tell, they're not openly arrogant. You have to like get to know them where you go, oh, that's where they're, because they're very good at being congenial always.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's just a high level of intelligence and mental activity. And,
Incredible.
if you're being respected for that, then it feels great. But if people are poo-pooing you, then of course you're going to be like, hey,
right.
Don't you see me? Don't you understand that I have what it takes?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think also too, they thought they were smartest in the room and they were, and so suddenly there's
smartest, but also the quirkiest, right? So it's like you can be you can be the smartest, but if nobody is accepting of you, then it doesn't really matter. And so there's always this balancing act, and I think Pluto's helping with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Pluto gives courage. I mean, when Pluto's in your sign, you suddenly have strength, courage. Like you really, you sit up erect in the seat and you're like, whoa, Pluto's there. Like we're going, whether you like it or not, is the energy of Pluto. And so if you just like lean into it, it'll just push you, give you a free ride to wherever you're heading, just don't let it crush you. Right. Interesting. Well, fascinating. I guess let's wrap up real quick as we hit that final sign and ask you any predictions, just, or any advice across the board just for the end of this year, for every person. With Pluto Pisces.
So, yeah, when it comes to Pisces, I feel like most of my stuff right now is so Pisces driven for everybody. Because it's like that's the point of evolution. That's where we're headed. And Pisces is very confusing and it's very frustrating. And there's nothing that's that tangible. So we're being asked, it's like we're being asked to like go on that hero's journey, but we're blindfolded. And so there's this element of trust and of having to face the fear. And Pisces is the existential fears, right? It's all the what ifs.
Mm.
And so for all of us, as we're trying to navigate Pisces, it's like we have to just be okay with what is without
Forgiving.
trying to control it, right? With just being with what is. And the shadow of Pisces is I'm scared. I feel
Mm.
unsafe. I want to jet out of here in whatever way, whether I'm literally leaving or I'm, using something or I'm scrolling or what have you. And we're being asked right now to not do that, but rather to just sit with the discomfort of just being here. And it's really hard to be a human on the planet because it's very uncomfortable.
There's a lot with Pisces. I mean, it goes so many different directions, but I think the work they're doing now is the official end of Pisces, the Age of Pisces. So I think they're doing Age of Pisces work, where they're closing the book on the codependency, yin yang, which is what their symbol's about, is like completing each other. That idea, which is really meant for spirit and body, the embodiment of spirit, but became like alcoholism, Catholic Church, like you need me because I need you. That has been all Pisces. And they have been, yes, they feel bad because they feel guilty. I think when you're a Pisces, you're like, okay, I'm going to just take one life and just like clean it all out. And do they? And it's like one thing after another. And if you don't understand that about Pisces, they've got like a ton of baggage they're going to process, through his lifetime. And they just did the rest of it. I think this year, you just did the rest of it. It's gone. Now it's like you need a job, because Aries is like, they haven't been able to, it's funny because I know Pisces, they're so deep and spiritual, but the Aries in the second, they'll like they'll have a hands-on job. They'll have something where they lift heavy stuff. Like they're the wise, some of the wisest that will be like that's the carpenter kind of like, cliche right there. The spiritual, but they like their hands dirty. But I think that world's over, AI, things like that. So Pisces find themselves, trying to fit back in the world after being on a sabbatical, I feel. And all their wounds are Scorpio, for them is like, you believe the wrong thing. That was the time. But you said it. It's forgiveness, self-forgiveness. The magic words are, it's okay. Who cares? It's okay. I think also the church, that's the last thing I want to say. I mean, the church has dominated Pisces energy and claimed it on the rights to Pisces. And, organized religion came in and took over Pisces. Any psychic connection you have to their side, theirs, and so we're all shaking off kind of our hangover. And realizing, oh, we're God, and we don't really even need you if we don't need you. And and so for Pisces too, they've been conduits of that. And so I think this new Pisces is saying, faith is what you know inside. When you're saying that it's at work, you can't define it. It's a weird murkiness. Yeah, it's the sensual part of ourselves, it's a spiritual part of ourselves. We're having to map it ourselves and decide what it is for ourselves. Like find it in ourselves and say, oh, that's it. I think that's what's happened with Pisces. As we clear out our pain, that's what we're finding. Pisces are now, okay, you're ready to live it. Like be that Holy Spirit. And Cancer for them is their their love stories. So I think here's my prediction. I think Cancers and Pisces are going to end up hooking up.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. Like a big, sudden Cancer Pisces surge, just because they're both ready for real love, and like Pisces will listen to you, Cancer, and will feel you every step of the way. They'll be there with you emotionally. They're a good sign. They're a good connection that way.
Yeah, they're definitely a good match.
Mm-hmm. They've also, I think, Pisces with career and Capricorn energy. For them, let's go echo one step. First, Capricorn, they were all tied to old world jobs and stuff. So Capricorn's their 11th house, and so they've, as society's like, we don't need a workforce. We have robots coming. Pisces are kind of like, well, what do you do? They don't know. But Pluto in this 12th says with Aquarius, turns out Pisces is close to God. It's about to get closer.
Yeah.
With Pluto going to your 12th, you're going to clear anything that's in the way. You're going to I don't know. They've already been intuitive and very compassionate. To others, like the volume is about to go up.
Yeah, it's about to up level, and then we're in this pause period right now where we're being asked to kind of show our work. Okay, so what have you learned on a spiritual level? And if you've really learned it, then you'll know about this. You're not controlling, you're on divine time, you are allowing. And those are all concepts that people are like, but I don't want that. I want the guarantee. Like I want the specific thing. And Pisces is like, oh, well, you can't have it. So
Mm-hmm.
we all are.
Yeah. Yeah. They have Leo in the 6th. So like they're here to be bright, shining. Like they're here to be Leos. They're supposed to shine like Leos at work.
Yeah.
Pisces, and they do. Pisces, happy Pisces twinkles. They do. You see them twinkle right in front of you. It's true. They have a little twinkle about them, and also compassion and calming. I feel like they're about to go out in the world. I mean, they're going to be finding God with Pluto in 12th, but they're going to be out in the world doing as a result. And Gemini in their fourth house, so really really thinking what their needs are. Like they have to be being compassionate themselves. Newsflash, you have to,
Yeah.
'cause they're kind of cerebral as far as the way they handle things. Pisces, with Taurus in the third and then Gemini in the fourth, like they handle their mind and their emotional from really not an empathic, watery way at all. Yeah.
Yeah. It's quite the journey.
Yeah. Well, I just mean for them, a sign like them who's so sensitive, just thinking about their feelings, I think that's what I'm saying. It's like it's not enough. Like I think like to intellectualize it and whatnot, but they're learning how to be gooey, soft, loving. Cancer in the fifth. Their inner child wants motherly energy from them. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And the Cancer Pisces hookups, like you're talking about, will be really good for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be what they always wish for. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you for coming and having this long talk. I mean, this has been well worth
great.
it. And you're really sharp at the shadow stuff. You came up with stuff that I had seen and had forgotten about, like dead on what you bring up with each signs, I thought, especially Cancer, because I'm a son of a Cancer. So I was like, praise, woman, praise.
Like, oh, I know all about that.
That's it. Oh my God. Lord knows it. So, how can people work with you?
So you can find me at electroastrology.com. I do readings. I also do a weekly forecast on YouTube, and I have a podcast called Star Narratives. So, and I dive into a lot of the shadow stuff. That's kind of my favorite aspect to take is, what's not going so great for you right now. And let's figure out what the remedy is so that you can feel better, but also just know your mission, because we've been talking about, we're going through all of this shifting and changing, and we are part of the change, and we each have a really unique thing that we're here to do, but we have to face our shadow first. And in doing that, it will help change the world. It's, we're light workers. We're doing the light work.
Yes, we are. And that I find is staying in your heart, like staying connected to what your heart wants, and being on the path of your heart. Because if you do that, you will not get lost in your journey to be there for yourself, is what I found. Yeah. Speaking of which, we are going to take a couple questions actually before we go, if I found out here, as we did promise. And so we've been scouring the audience for that. I for one, once I start, my friend, I'm an astrologer, I'm just running down places I haven't been able to run before, and just having that. It's so nice. So here we go. Yeah. Okay, there we go. We can both take a crack at this.
Okay.
How do we know what the percentage for human design or zodiac sign is generated? How? Virgo said whom? Well, it's actually by sacred geometry that they're divided. You start at 0 Aries for the constellation, and then this isn't classic astrology. And then by sacred design or sacred knowledge of shape, we know that shape should be, that circle should be divided into 6 regions or 12 opposites, that make opposites. So 12 pieces of pie. That's a sacred geometry thing that happens when you apply, when you're casting the chart. It's part of the laws of astrology. And really the constellation is like in the middle, all over the place. Like it's not really like smack center, and it's really that sector of space, that third, that 1/12 of space and the millions of stars behind that. I think that generate this archetypal energy that we, and humans craft into these different personality traits is how I feel. So, but I don't know. Virgo said whom, unless, probably Mesopotamia is the one that I think I know about. They're the first, I think, to draw charts.
Good. I'm glad you knew the answer to that.
Happen to, but not always. South Node and Jupiter and Leo at the same time. I'll let you feel this first.
Hi, Sydney. How will Leos do when South Node and Jupiter and Leo at the same time? I mean, I think that South Node is always a really good opportunity to release stuff, and Jupiter is a really good opportunity to expand. So you're going to have to differentiate what needs to go. Like, what's the trash that needs to be taken out when I'm looking at my Leo shadow, right? That part of me that wants the validation from the outside because I don't feel it in here. And then Jupiter reminding you, you have it, you are expanding. There's so much for you, but you have to let go. It's like, I use the analogy of the rocks in the backpack. Yeah, you can put rocks in your backpack and hike up the hill, and you can do the hike and it's great, but why are you hiking with the rocks? don't you want to take the rocks out so that it makes room for the things that you need, like the water bottle and the snack? So it's going to be a really interesting balance of what needs to go so that I can be comfortable and really have an amazing time moving forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I feel like Jupiter in their sign, they're going to feel like rock stars, and they've been working on themselves in the 7th house. So I'm expecting a lot of breakups, a lot of like trading up. Like, that's it. I think they're going to be letting go of a lot of stuff that they were sure about, and now they're like, oh, my new image or whatever the values are. It's time to shine. They're tired of being in the closet. Jupiter and Cancer, stirred up all their subconscious. So it's like the sun is out, and I think they're going to be playing. But I agree. I think we're going to see a lot of changes. But it's typical Leo spoiled. I mean, it's like you're going to have, like, as you go and get a facial with Jupiter, it's going to make you all pretty. You're also getting exfoliant at the same time for the same price. So it's like the universe is like taking away your wardrobe and giving you a brand new one right at the same moment. That's lucky as far as I'm concerned, like Jupiter in the South Node. South Node is kind of hard, and you guys are going to have like Jupiter there selling you gifts. Like, like lucky dogs. Like,
right.
Whatever.
It's gonna be like you're outside of the concert and you can't get in yet, and it's really hot, but there's a vendor selling cold water and burritos. Great.
Totally. Yeah. He thinks you're good looking and wants to know what your
flirting
Instagram
with you.
is.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm on Instagram, of course, says Leo, and you're there. I think it's going to be like a lot of unfortunate, misfortune brings to fortune. Like, boom, 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 something falls apart. And like, oh, there he is. Like the tire blows, and then like the guy is like the hunk that you always wanted. Like, it's going to be through. Something's going to go down, and you're going to be good luck in that moment. You have luck there, so it's good. It's going to be right, and the world needs it. Actually, I think it's the loss of an old definition of love and the birth of a new. So. Yeah. So, okay. Thank you everyone for your questions, and thanks everyone. And thank you for coming. We'll have to do this again, as we always say.
Yeah. Anytime. I love it. It's like getting to kind of geek out and speak the same language with you and with everybody listening. So my pleasure.
It's great too, because we look at different sides. I see that we come together and our answers is like, we're seeing, I think, our generations, and it's like been very thorough. I know the Taurus, I get along with so well too. So I've been working more and more Tauruses. It's like I'm on my own kind as we go out there and build. It's very good. So thank you so much. It's been great.
All right. Thank you.
See you next time. Bye, Natha.
Bye.
Yeah. Thank you. So we did go over, and we did bring some questions in there, and we thank you for being a part of it. And we will be cutting these up probably and putting them out individually as well. So tell your friends and whatnot. Hope they were valuable. Let us know in the comments what you thought, and we'll see you next week with more. Until then, we love you. Live, love, be.
Coming up next week on Serious Joy TV. Join Sensei Christopher and co-host psychic medium Scott Cruz live on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Then tune into Astro Mingle as we chat with our returning friend, Michelle R. Jones. Her mission is to explore full body ascension in this new era with an emphasis on gut health, food, and energetic alignment. The best in enlightened entertainment, only on Serious Joy TV.